What's going on, everybody? Back at it with another New York Giants video. And in this video, I'm going to talk about the initial 53-man roster that was announced on Tuesday and the moves that have taken place since. So what I'm going to analyze it, break it down a little bit for you, talk about some surprises, some things I didn't expect, some things that I liked. We'll also go over the Darius Slayton trade rumors, some waiver wire additions that were made today, and the practice squad. We're going to see what happens. But before I dive into that, folks, make sure to check us out on all of our social media platforms on Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube at Big Blue Avenue. Make sure to sign up by ringing the bell for notifications and subscribing to our YouTube channel for all the up-to-date New York Football Giants news. Now, I wanted to wait a little bit before I did this video. I wanted to see what changes were going to take place, also due to the fact that my regular laptop has some liquid damage to it. So I'm recording on a Dell right now. So I wanted to keep the videos a little few and far between, even though it's a busy time of the season. I'd rather cover more in less videos. But let's talk about the 53-man roster. So this is the initial 53-man that was announced yesterday. And I've got to say, I was pretty impressed with what the Giants did overall from a roster standpoint. I got 47 out of the 53 names correct in my prediction. And first and foremost, I mean, I think a lot of people can debate, whether the Giants should have carried a third quarterback on their 53-man or not. But they went with two, Daniel Jones and Tyrod Taylor. This is a good sign for Tyrod Taylor, meaning that he is likely cleared with his injury for week one against the Tennessee Titans to back up Daniel Jones. Obviously, Davis Webb has since been re-signed to the practice squad, but the Giants mainly just kept two QBs because they wanted an additional position on the roster to allocate elsewhere, which is exactly what they did. Next up, the four running backs they kept on the active 53-man are Saquon Barkley, Matt Breida, Antonio Williams, and Gary Brightwell. I think Saquon was the one obvious lock, obviously, because he's a captain, which we'll get into that later. 10 captains is kind of crazy, if you ask me. But Saquon Barkley is the workhorse on this Giants offense. He is the number one option, right? He's arguably the best player on the football team still, entering his fifth season, playing on that fifth-year option. He's backed up by Matt Breida, who a lot of people were talking about might be a surprise cut, but I never really saw that coming because of his connection with the Buffalo Bills and Joe Schoen. He's also lightning quick, so expect to see him spell Barkley from time to time. But due to this running back depth chart, I expect Barkley to carry the bulk this season. Antonio Williams, well-deserved as the number 3 running back. He looked good in preseason. Again, former Buffalo Bill. Has experience with Dable and Joe Schoen. Gary Brightwell over Jashawn Corbin. Some people were upset and wanted Jashawn Corbin, but Gary Brightwell is a core special teams player. Also, in the first preseason game, he had a couple of good runs, so I think keeping Brightwell was the right move. Jashawn Corbin re-signed to the practice squad. And then also Sandro Platzgummer made the team, but he does not count against the 53. He is the international exemption. So it's these four in particular running backs on the 53-man roster. Now, wide receiver, there was a lot of debate and there was a lot of drama around this. Some people on social media wanted the Giants to cut Kenny Gallade, which made absolutely no sense because the Giants would have actually used money or lost money if they cut him. Granted, he is the best receiver currently on this roster. All these other young guys still got to prove it, like Tony and Wandale. But let's look. 7 receivers were kept for now. Now, I know that a lot of people are going to say, well, why didn't they keep Alex Bachmann? I love Alex Bachmann. He's been on the team since 2019, on and off. But Bachmann, again, was getting in the game late, going up against backups and third stringers at best. Now, granted, he's an excellent route runner with good hands. He scored a pair of touchdowns in the preseason. He also scored a preseason touchdown last year as well and led the NFL with 19 receptions in the preseason. But the reason why Bachmann didn't make this roster, look at the other names on this list. Sterling Shepard, Kadarius Toney, Wandale Robinson, and Richie James specifically have very similar traits to Alex Bachmann. Mostly Sterling Shepard, if you ask me. He's a much richer version of Alex Bachmann. And to be quite frank, you want to keep receivers that can go over the top, like David Sills and a Darius Slayton, which I'll get into in just a moment. But as much as I would have loved to have seen Alex Bachmann make this 53-man roster, I mean, Giants fans, you had to see this one coming. He wasn't going to make the team unless Richie James went down with an injury. We know who the top three are: Gallade, Shep, and Tony. Wan'Dale is the 4, the second-round rookie out of Kentucky. Darius Slayton will be the 5 if he sticks. Again, you don't want to pay your wide receiver $2.5 million, but you also don't want to give him up for nothing if there's no trade partner, in my opinion. And David Sills and Richie James, who's going to be the kick and punt returner most likely. So those are the receivers currently. Look, Slayton's on a contract year. There are rumors that the Giants are shopping him and teams are interested, but are the Giants going to be able to pull it off and find a trade partner that's going to accept the package that the Giants want? Who knows? I'm not so sure, but as of right now, Slayton will be on the New York Giants in 2022. But yeah, I'm very happy for David Sills, by the way. He's been fighting his butt off since 2019, and he's actually the 9th longest tenured Giant. Fun fact. Goes to show you how much turnover this roster has. Now, I know this player is technically a fullback / H-back, but the next position is tight end. I put Myrick here because I had him here, and I'm going to still keep him here because he really is a tight end who's somewhat converting to the fullback / H-back position in this Mike Kafka run offense. So, Tanner Hudson made the initial 53, but was released. Rumors are they expect to re-sign him after they move Rodarius Williams, Ellerson Smith, and Shane Lemieux to short-term IR, meaning those 3 players will miss the first 4 weeks of the season. I expect the Giants to add a player to this tight end room before it's all said and done. I don't know if Hudson will be here come week 1. Daniel Bellinger, clear tight end 1 on this team. By the way, he switched his number to number 82. Chris Myrick was brought on last year by Dave Gettleman, scored a touchdown for the Giants in a game. So I don't view him as a tight end 2, though. He's not it, but he is good in run blocking. Tanner Hudson, former 49er and Buccaneer. I'm not sure if he's going to be re-signed or not. Again, people think he is, but I'm not so sure yet. I won't believe it until I see it. So right now, Daniel Bellinger is the only true tight end on this roster, and he's in concussion protocol. He's progressing well, and it bodes well for his week 1 status that the Giants only kept this many players, but we will see what happens. Expect the Giants to look at a guy like a Sean McKeon maybe from Dallas. I know Anthony Ferkser is out there. I'm not sure if he's been claimed yet, but there are some tight ends out there that can upgrade this tight end room because I do not feel comfortable going into this. But keep in mind, as of 4 p.m. today, the Giants are now $4.5 million over the cap. So Giants have to be careful with what they do. Thank you, Dave Gettleman. Next up, offensive line. The Giants kept 9 initially. There still is 9, but I'll explain in a moment. The 5 obvious ones are Andrew Thomas, Shane Lemieux, John Feliciano, Mark Lewinsky, and the first-round tackle, Evan Neal. Josh Azudu, the third-round pick, checks in as a backup and has a shot to start week 1, in my opinion. Ben Bredesen makes the team as well, was traded for around this time last year from the Baltimore Ravens. Again, even though Wink is a defensive coordinator, he does have a connection with Wink. That 1 year he was in Baltimore, going up against his guys in practice. Devery Hamilton, a guy who's impressed. He can play tackle or guard. He might be the front runner to start at left guard for week 1 as of right now. And Max Garcia, who was signed by the Giants in the offseason from the Arizona Cardinals, made the initial 53-man roster, but Max Garcia was released in favor of Jack Anderson. And I'll get into Jack Anderson in just a moment, but this was the initial 53-man team for the offensive line. Also, fun fact, the Giants gave up the least amount of pressures amongst all offensive lines in the NFC this preseason. Tremendous improvement from where this offensive line was last year. Notable offensive linemen released were Garrett McGinn, Will Holden, Roy Mbedeka, Jamil Douglas, a veteran, and that was the only difference. I had Jamil Douglas making it over Max Garcia. Jamil Douglas was also filling in as the backup center, but apparently, the Giants didn't feel comfortable with Douglas moving forward. Not sure if it was the injury or if something else was up, but we will see what happens come week 1, what this offensive line will look like. I still don't think Ben Bredesen and Devery Hamilton are here to for sure stay just yet, but it's looking likely as of right now. Defensively, defensive line originally kept 5 with Leonard Williams, Dexter Lawrence, Justin Ellis from the Baltimore Ravens, DJ Davidson, and Nick Williams, who was one of the 4 players released following the waiver claims. Nick Williams, that is. I like this defensive line, and if you look at the opponents the Giants are playing this season, week 1, you're going up against Derrick Henry, right, for the Tennessee Titans. You're going up against other strong running backs this year, like David Montgomery, like an Ezekiel Elliott. You need guys that are going to clog the A gaps. You need guys at the 0 tech and the 1 tech position that are going to be legitimate threats to stuff the run. And that's why I think Jelly Ellis wound up making this roster, not to mention his connection to Wink. DJ Davidson, the impressive rookie out of Arizona State. Nick Williams, who was released, he might be brought back. We're not sure yet. But Leonard Williams and Dexter Lawrence, both named captains this year, by the way. Again, we'll get to the captain thing in just a moment, but that is the defensive line as of right now. With Nick Williams released, there are currently only 4 interior defensive linemen on the Giants' active 53-man. Moving on to the edge rusher position, the Giants kept 6, but maybe not the 6 you would have thought. Kayvon Thibodeau and Azeez Ojulari were the obvious ones, and the reason why I had 6 edge rushers in mind was because of Thibodeau spraining his MCL and Ojulari with a knee issue flaring up. O'Shane Jimenez, I knew was going to make this team. I am not the biggest fan of his. He has not had a sack since his rookie season when he had 4.5 back in 2019. Plus, he is on a contract year. But the Giants, despite releasing Quincy Roche, were able to bring him back on the practice squad. Jihad Ward, former Baltimore Raven and Jacksonville Jaguar, makes the team. There is a connection there with Wink. Ellerson Smith, who's likely headed to IR to start the season. And then Timon Fox, who is the only undrafted free agent to make the roster. I believe Timon Fox went to North Carolina, had that beautiful hit at the end of the Cincinnati preseason game that jarred the ball loose. So I'm really happy for Timon Fox. That is just awesome. All right. So before I get into the inside linebackers, folks, just want to remind you all that we are presented by our sponsor, BetUS. You can sign up with our promo code below there at Join125. Again, that is Join125. Get a 125% sign-up bonus when you bet online. Again, that is BetUS, where the game begins. Make sure to go check them out. They have awesome deals for all your sports betting. Inside linebackers, Giants kept 6, and I'm happy they kept 6. When I was doing my roster projections, I was looking at what the Ravens did last year defensively, just to see, maybe allude to what the Giants might do. And I was also looking at what Buffalo did, right? Each of those teams kept 6 inside linebackers. And you look at who the Giants kept: Blake Martinez, shocked he's not a captain coming off the ACL injury. Tate Crowder, again, Mr. Irrelevant from 2 years ago, who is still holding down that linebacker 2 position. Unfortunately, the Giants lost Darian Beavers to a season-ending torn ACL to eliminate his rookie campaign. But Micah McFadden has been coming on as of late. Really good in the run game, snuffs up running backs in the backfield, and he can cover as well. Cam Brown, core special teams player. Again, I don't know why he was named the captain, but he has emerged quite nicely, filling in for that Nate Ebner type of role. Carter Coughlin, who can play on the inside or the outside, very versatile. Plus, he's a force to be reckoned with on specials. In addition to Cam Brown, and Carter Coughlin can also get to the quarterback on occasion. And then Austin Calitro, the local guy who went to college at Villanova. He's bounced around several NFL teams. He was released earlier today, but there is anticipation he will be brought back to the 53-man active roster once the IR decisions are made by the Giants coaching staff and front office. But good for Austin Calitro. He had a great preseason, making this initial 53-man, had that interception return for a touchdown on Sunday against the Jets, and he was also impressive in the Cincinnati game too. So shout out to Austin Calitro for making this roster. A lot of people didn't have Carter Coughlin making it. I'm not so sure why. I think Bobby Skinner was the one that pointed out on that Calitro pick 6, Carter Coughlin set up the block that allowed Calitro a free lane into the end zone. Secondary, this is where it gets a little concerning. The Giants only kept 8 DBs. If you're going to blitzkrieg like Wink Martindale likes to do, you need to be able to cover Adoree Jackson, Aaron Robinson, who's been toast this preseason, Darnay Holmes, Cordell Flott, the third-round rookie, and Rodarius Williams, who's likely headed to IR. Cut from this position were Harrison Hand, Zion Gilbert, Darren Evans, Khalil Dorsey, who was awful. I'm surprised they didn't cut him after the Jets game. He was actually one of the final 7 cuts. But yeah, this is a paper-thin cornerback room. The Giants did make some waiver claims to make up for the gaps in this position by claiming Justin Layne from the Pittsburgh Steelers, and then also the other guy they got, I'm trying to think, it was Nick McCloud from the Buffalo Bills. Spent his senior season at Notre Dame. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. So, Giants, 5 cornerbacks on the initial 53-man. Aaron Robinson is still likely to be CB2, like it or not. Again, the secondary is a huge concern of mine this season. The Giants have added to it, and hopefully it's a little better. Only 3 initial safeties as well. This goes to show you cannot make your projections based on position. You have to make it off of who's best available, right? A lot of people, myself included, had Trenton Thompson making this initial 53-man roster. Joe Shane said, well, Trenton Thompson has a much higher percentage of landing on the practice squad than a guy like, let's say, Carter Coughlin, if we were to cut him, right? So the fact that the Giants kept Carter Coughlin on the 53-man roster and kept Trenton Thompson on the practice squad is a genius move by Joe Shane. The Giants did bring in Jason Pinnock from the New York Jets. Doesn't have to travel far to his new team. And I'll get to him in just a few moments. But it's looking good for Dane Belton coming off that broken collarbone injury. And also, X and Love, both named captains. Love to see it. No pun intended. Special teams, 3 players. Graham Gano, Jamie Gillen, and Casey Kreider. Nothing to talk about there. Gano and Kreider both named captains. Now, the Darius Slayton trade rumors. I've heard a lot about it. I don't know what's going to happen. At the end of the day, he's valuable to this football team, and I just don't think it makes sense to release him unless you're talking from a financial standpoint, because it didn't make sense to release James Bradbury either, right? Because what happened? The Philadelphia Eagles came in and scooped him up. Darius Slayton is a guy who is likely not going to be on the roster next year. Will he stick? I'm not so sure. If the Giants don't find a trade partner, expect him to remain on this 53-man roster throughout the 2022 regular season, or at least the first half of it before the trade deadline, because there might be a restructure coming with Leonard Williams to free up some cap space to allow the Giants to operate. So I would not put all my eggs into the basket of Darius Slayton being traded just yet. Again, another wide receiver, surprise cuts for me. It was not Alex Bachmann. It was Quincy Roche. I thought he would have made it over Timon Fox. I thought Fox would have easily made it to the practice squad, much easier than Quincy Roche. Roche had 2.5 sacks last season coming in as a waiver claim from the Pittsburgh Steelers, but Quincy Roche is back on the practice squad. Hey, let's talk about those waiver wire additions because I think it's very, very interesting. Now, we do know that Shane Lemieux is dealing with a toe injury. He's likely headed to IR and will miss the first 4 weeks. Ellerson Smith, the calf injury, also likely headed to IR, expected to miss the first 4 weeks. Same thing goes for Rodarius Williams, battling a knee injury. These were the 4 players the Giants claimed. The first one is Jack Anderson, offensive line who can play all 3 interior offensive line positions. Anderson was drafted by the Buffalo Bills in the 7th round last year in 2021 out of Texas Tech. He spent the month on the Bills practice squad before signing with the Eagles, and the Eagles kept him throughout the rest of the 2021 season. He's played in 2 career games with 1 start, starting the season finale at left guard against the Dallas Cowboys. Eagles waived him yesterday despite performing well in training camp and preseason. The Eagles have one of the better lines in the NFL. Remember, they spent draft picks the last 2 years on interior offensive linemen early. Landon Dickerson and Cam Jurgens specifically. So Jack Anderson could be a good plug-and-play player. Hey, he could even be the starting left guard come week 1 against Tennessee because he knows Bobby Johnson, right? He likes to call his offensive linemen dirtbags. Jack Anderson, probably a dirtbag. So next up is Nick McCloud, also a former Buffalo Bill, waived by them yesterday. 6 foot 193, hasn't made it off an NFL practice squad yet, but as of right now, he's set to be on the Giants 53. He went undrafted out of Notre Dame in 2021. He can play corner. He can play safety. I think he's a versatile player who can come in and help this secondary out. Much needed. Now, notice here that 3 of these 4 waiver claims were secondary additions. The third waiver claim is Justin Layne from the Pittsburgh Steelers. This is the second year in a row the Giants claimed a cut Steelers player off of waivers. Justin Layne, a third-round pick by the Steelers back in 2019 out of Michigan State. Tall corner, by the way, 6'2", 192, had 12 tackles last year, played in all 17 games, had a career-high 22 stops in 2020. I would not mind Justin Layne as cornerback number 5, especially for as long as Rodarius Williams is out. Jason Pinnock from the Jets. I'm most excited for this one, actually, because he's used to the field at MetLife. He was a 5th-round pick in last year's draft. He wound up playing 24% of the snaps on defense last year. Has a good nose and pass coverage. He can jar some balls loose. He appeared in 12 games last year for the Jets, making 16 stops, 1 pass defended, and 2 forced fumbles. 2. Note that. But he'll likely contribute on special teams and be the 4th safety on the roster, in addition to Julian Love, X, and Dane Belton. I also think he's an upgrade over the guys we had in the offseason, like Henry Black, Andrew Adams, and even Trenton Thompson. The Giants also did sign one other secondary player who was released by the Baltimore Ravens, Tony Jefferson. Giants signed him to their practice squad. I'd expect Jefferson to be on the 53-man at some point early in the season. He previously played under Wink. Jefferson knows the defense well. He has 61 career starts, so I think that will bode well. So he's on the practice squad. Again, the 4 players released by the Giants were Max Garcia, the guard/center, likely replaced by Tanner Hudson, but I believe Max Garcia is re-signing to the Giants practice squad. At least that's the rumor. Tanner Hudson, tight end, who knows? Austin Calitro will likely be re-signed to the 53-man, and Nick Williams. I can't see the Giants going with just 4 interior defensive linemen, so I'd expect Nick Williams to be back at some point. If it's not him, it'll be somebody else. Now, we look at the Giants practice squad, right? Let's take a look at it. Well, 15 players for most of the day until late tonight. Tony Jefferson is a safety. 2 other safeties made it in Trenton Thompson and Nate Metters. 3 corners also made it. Harrison Hand, Zion Gilbert, and Darren Evans. I don't expect the Giants to have 6 of their 16 practice squad spots allocated towards defensive backs. I'd expect that to change at some point. Quincy Roche highlights that practice squad with Tony Jefferson and Davis Webb, the quarterback. So the Giants are able to maintain Webb and carry a 3rd QB. Offensive line-wise, the Giants were able to bring back Roy Mbedeka, the international player on the practice squad, in addition to Garrett McGinn and Will Holden, 3 offensive tackles. Ryder Anderson, the guy who I thought would make the 53-man over Nick Williams, undrafted free agent out of Indiana, makes it as a defensive lineman. And the 2 wide receivers, the Giants kept C.J. Board and Jalen Moore. Notice no Alex Bachmann. Deshaun Corbin sticks as a running back. And finally, the big 6'9" Austin Allen at tight end. I'm thrilled he made it. Austin Allen could be promoted as tight end number 3. You know, they could say, hey, we want to upgrade at tight end too. We don't want Chris Myrick and Tanner Hudson on this team long term. Let's upgrade at tight end 2 and make Austin Allen tight end 3. Why not, right? For right now, Austin Allen is on the practice squad. Folks, that's it for this video. There's going to be a lot more happening over the next several hours and days regarding this 2022 New York Football Giants team. Remember, folks, if you like what you watch, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel at Big Blue Avenue. Also, there are our Instagram and Twitter handles below, scrolling across the stream at Big Blue Avenue. Appreciate everybody for watching this video. Ring the bell for notifications, like it, hit the subscribe button if you want to watch more of Big Blue Avenue. And without further ado, let's go Big Blue.